All right, everybody, welcome. Welcome to a special webinar today. Why I started an SEO company. This is a special interview with Jared Turner, co-founder and CTO of Boostability. I'm Aaron Presbury. I'll be your host. We appreciate you setting aside some time to join us today. Jared, it's great to see you. How are you?
Thanks, Aaron. Doing well. Doing
Excellent.
well.
Two bold brothers. Maybe that's what we should call the series.
There you go.
We'll have to shave Nick's hair when he comes back.
That's right. He's got to be one of us, right?
Yeah, that's right. We'll have to convert him. Well, before we get into the interview today, I do want to let everybody know that our next webinar will be on October 8th at the same time, 11 a.m. Mountain Time. We look forward to being with you again here in a few weeks. But Jared, you have been on a great ride as you've come into the digital realm and began an SEO company. And here we are today, decades later. We'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey, maybe starting back even before the adult phase of your life. I'm sure as a youngster, you were creative, you were thoughtful, you were curious, but tell us a little bit about Jared Turner.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Southwest Provo, Utah, and my dad worked in the grocery business. So he worked for a company called Reams,
Okay.
and my mom was a homemaker, and that was kind of the deal. I had an older sister, and I have a younger brother and sister as well. Um, we grew up pretty meager, pretty poor. I didn't know this at the time, but we were kind of on the lower end of the income scale, but we always had enough food to eat. We always had a roof over our heads and clothes on our back. So I can't complain. But one of the things that was throughout most of my childhood is, and a lot of people don't know this, but I was bullied quite badly. Um, and it started in elementary school through junior high school and even into high school. And it was really difficult because it it forced me to close myself off in many regards, to protect myself. And so that was something that was, I would say, very impactful through my formative years. Um, and then as my career has expanded and my role within the company and just different endeavors that I've done, I've had to kind of peel back some of those layers and open myself back up in a lot of those areas. And it hasn't been the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, that's powerful. Especially to know that a lot of people have those experiences, right? But maybe don't have the courage or confidence to share those vulnerabilities, but they are what help shape who we become, right? So you know, I admire you for sharing that, and I'm sorry that you went through, those dark days. And
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a struggle, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Is that the
true.
saying?
Yeah, for sure. So your dad worked at Reams,
Yep.
and things were, we'll say, tight. And I'm sure you probably had working opportunities growing up in that type of an environment to learn how to graft hard and get stuck in at a younger age and help contribute. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe
I,
tell
I
us a
mean,
little bit about that.
there was no shortage of chores and things that I was responsible for, whether it was like my dad is not the most mechanically inclined individual, and he would agree with that sentiment. Um, so if there was any fix it types things that needed to happen within the home, it was on me. So um, everything from putting together new items that required assembly, or climbing up on the roof and changing out the pads for the swamp cooler that we had on our roof, to mowing the lawn and even framing and building a bathroom in our basement.
Wow.
So just lots of things over the years that I've been exposed to, just out of necessity more than anything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
So,
was
I mean, that's obviously before the YouTube days, right? You're not YouTubing how to do a bathroom. How'd you figure it all out?
trial and error for the most part. You just gotta figure it out. I mean, um, that's when I got into coding. That's exactly how it was too. You didn't have all of these online libraries and frameworks and all the nice things that are available to developers today. if you wanted to write something that made a backend, asynchronous request using JavaScript from a browser to a server, you had to write it from scratch because there wasn't any libraries available. Um, so yeah, it definitely gives me appreciation for the landscape that exists today, but also it formed me into it gave me the technical understanding that I have today, which I think in is more vast and kind of all encompassing than a lot of engineers are exposed to just by what they do. They might not have to dig in that deep and understand it at that level. So
Yeah. So troubleshooting swamp cores, building bathrooms. How'd you move to the coding realm? Tell us a little bit about that.
interestingly enough, out of high school, I graduated at 17. I went to a junior college. And funny enough, one of the classes that I took was an intro to computer programming class. And I hated everything about the class. The coursework, just everything. And I told myself, I will never get into this. And fast forward a few more years, and
Be
I was
careful with
actually
those self-promises.
seriously. So I started going to college up here in Utah Valley. I was going to UVU, and um, we had the summer break, and so I got a new position. It was a part-time sales position at this company called aha.com. This is back in 1999, and I was just a sales guy, right? College summer sales guy. And, I was good at sales, did just fine. But then we had this pizza party, and I'm thinking, this is the greatest company ever. They're feeding me pizza, and the CEO got up and said, I hate to tell you this, but we're out of money. We can't pay you anymore. Um,
Oh no.
but, but we're going to try and raise some money and keep the company afloat. So for those of you that are willing and able to come back and keep working
Yeah.
with no promise of pay, that would be wonderful. So I thought, what the heck? I don't have anything to lose. I'm a young college student. I'll work for, it ended up being about 3 or 4 months working for free,
Wow.
and not just working 8-hour days. I was working usually 12 to 15-hour days just because there were so many people that had left that there was a lot to do. And it was during that time that one of the engineers quit because he wanted to be paid, and understandable. And I
Yeah.
went to the CTO, who was one of the founders of the company,
Yeah.
and I said, I'm a bright guy, and I'd love to learn how to code. And so he handed me this big giant book, and I think it was ASP. Um, and he said, read this. And so I took that home and I read it and
Wow.
practiced a lot of the things in it. And then he handed me another one, and it was like HTML4, I think it was. Handed me a big old book, and I took that home, read that book, and then he gave me a project, and I learned how to program. I learned how to do QA. I learned about database programming, even database administration. I learned about networking and infrastructure and just all of the different things, just because we were this hyper startup company and we didn't have a ton of people. So I was a jack of all trades, master of none type of a situation. And that's how I got into technology. And it when I finally saw that programming or coding was a tool to solve business problems, and I could see the two married together, and it actually solving business problems, giving people jobs. Even some of the tools that I built were used by personnel in the company. It clicked for me.
Wow.
And all of the stuff that I had done at school, it had no resonance, right? It was just
Right.
kind of cold and impassive. So for me, that was a huge turning point in my career, because I was planning on going to law school and becoming a lawyer. So
Wow.
pretty big pivot in my life.
You'd be a good lawyer too. We've had some good discussions. You were very convincing. That's crazy. It's as if the stress and the necessity of your situation forced you to build things, and then knowing that they were needed, and in turn, maybe you felt needed too, kind of that outpowered those feelings that you had earlier of, this, I don't ever want to do this. That's fascinating how the pendulum swung.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. And I was always a really inquisitive person when I was young. I still remember vividly that my parents bought this brand new VCR, and it was impactful because it not only could um, play and rewind and basic functions, but it also could record, which was kind of a higher end model. And they called it a four-head VCR. It was kind of top of the line. Well, when we got this thing and we're playing movies in it, it just fascinated me, the technology of it all. And it's in this box, right, with a power cord coming out. And
Yeah.
so what did I do? I took the
Took it
whole
apart.
thing apart. I
I
took it
knew you were
I
gonna say
took it apart down to its pieces, and I had it laid out all over the floor. And my parents came home and about lost their minds. But when they saw me put it all back together again and it still worked, they were okay with it. So that was the first of many clock radios, boom boxes, any number of things. I just wanted to see how things worked.
great. It seems like doing it on your terms as well was more the ideal way of your learning, right? Hey, here's a book. Hey, here's a VCR player. Go and do rather than sit and be lectured by somebody who could teach you, but your way was to self-teach
Yeah,
and learn through the challenges of what that brings. Amazing. So aha.com, what happened after that? Where did that go? You're building the tools, you're helping the company. Did it get back on its feet? What
it
took
did.
place after
So
that?
yeah, we grew that company from virtually nothing,
Yeah,
and we grew it up to about I think we were doing about $5 million in revenue a month,
amazing.
and about half of that was profit. It was a very profitable company. We ended up being bought and acquired by a company in Seattle, Washington, called Marchex. They're still around today. Um, the reason why they purchased us is they wanted to start kind of building a search marketing platform.
Yeah,
And we had a pay-per-click search engine. It was one of the first in the industry, well before AdWords was even a thing.
right,
Um, we actually were competitors with a company called GoTo.com, I think it was,
right.
which then later became Overture.com and then was acquired by Yahoo, and Yahoo made it into a platform called Panama. This is way back in the early 2000s. Um, but we had a pay-per-click search engine that I built the logic for the click processing and the actual search itself. And so it was a cool system where if as soon as a click took a person over their budget, they could refresh their spend dynamically. And so I had to build the logic that was processing, billions of searches and millions of clicks.
Yeah,
And at the click level, I had to refresh different budgets at different amounts, $25 here, $50 there, $100 here. So it was a good learning experience to kind of get my feet wet in the paid search
yeah,
ecosystem online.
fantastic. So Marchex come in, they acquire you. How long did you stay with them, and kind of how did that lead to getting into SEO? Because it wasn't really called SEO back then, right?
It
The
wasn't, yeah.
organic rankings.
Yeah, for sure. It really was, you just had to have some keywords and have a website and you would rank, right? Because
Right.
there just wasn't a lot of competition. So, aha, we grew that. We were acquired. I'd stayed for about another year and a half, I think it was. They wanted all of the engineers to move up to Seattle. My wife said no. And
Too
we
much
stayed.
rain.
So we stayed here, obviously. Um, and then I had a few other jobs in the interim. Um, I worked at a company called One Great Family. It's a genealogy company. I was one of the software engineers there. I built an encryption system that would encrypt credit card information and sensitive data for their platform. Um, and I also built some other things about it. Actually was some early SEO. So they had millions and millions of surnames in their database, and they wanted to take those surnames and build them into specific landing pages or pages that could come up in the search results. And so I built a system that took this massive database and built static HTML files for every surname that existed in the database. And then it would publish those out to the website, and then it would send Google a notification that there was the sitemap needed to be updated and there were new pages. And so I was able to get millions and millions of pages indexed for this genealogy company, and their traffic and revenue and everything increased dramatically from some of those efforts. So that was kind of dipping my toes in the first time, and understanding how the search algorithm responded to different changes within a website and some of the best practices. So after One Great Family, I left there. That was a company I was actually let go from, and
Oh,
it was the first time I'd ever been let go in my
oh,
career, and it's brutal. The
after doing
emotions,
all that as
the
well.
things, yeah. So what it was is I was interviewing for positions up closer to my home because Springville is where the company is located, and I was driving about 30 to 40 minutes a day or each way to get to work. And I didn't like having to drive that far and put that many miles on my car and the gas and all of that. So I was interviewing with some companies closer to where I lived. My boss at the company was monitoring my emails, and he intercepted an email that I sent to a coworker saying that I'd received a job offer that I was considering that was closer to home. Within about 5 minutes, and I'm not even kidding, of me sending that email to my coworker, I was pulled into my boss's office. HR is sitting in the office, and he says, "I understand that you're looking for a new position. We're going to make that a full-time thing for you. You're being let go today." And I mean, there was no cause, no rhyme or reason. I hadn't done anything wrong. Um, and he let me go. And so I went to my office, packed up my stuff. They escorted me out of the building. I'm driving home, and I called my wife and I said, so I just got fired.
Oh my.
And at the time I was distraught, right?
Sure.
I'm reeling because it
Yeah.
just came out of left field. Um, but when I got home that day, it was about 10 in the morning that I was let go. I got home about 11. I got online. I started checking some different job boards, and I submitted my resume to a company in Orem um, for a director of development role. So I hadn't been in a management position before, but I thought, hey, why not apply? I'd been a senior engineer for a few years at this point. So I applied. I went down and interviewed. The guy offered me the position on the spot, and I accepted on the spot. And that the company was called Distriba, and it was where I met Matt Beatty, who's one of our founders and one of our principal engineers here at Boostability. But I met him for the first time at that company, so that was very fortunate. And
Yeah.
I had about a 5 to 6 month stint at that company, and I was approached by Travis Thorpe, who I had met and become friends with at AHA,
Yeah.
and he said, "Hey, I have this new company that we're starting. It's called Orange Soda. Do you want to come in and basically head up all the technology development, software engineering, all of those things?" And I said, "Sure, let's do it." So hopped from that company. I actually asked Matt Beatty to come with me. So
Yeah.
he left and came. That's also where I met Cody Frankham. He was hired and brought on at Orange Soda as well. About 2.5 years into Orange Soda, the team had grown to about 18 engineers. The company was doing, I think, 20 million or so in revenue. It was
Wow.
it was a it was a great company during those days. And it was at that time that we had focused primarily on paid search, and we needed to migrate or move to um, SEO as an
Right.
offering because it started kind of getting some airtime. And I approached the leadership team with an idea to build a workflow platform that would manage and track and maintain all of our SEO clients and all the work and everything that needed to be done. And they said, no, we're not interested in investing in something like that. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to leave and I'm going to start this other company. And as soon as I said that, they brought me in, they fired me.
Wow.
There was a whole legal thing around it. They even sued us when we started Boostability. But it all worked out.
Yeah.
I don't fault them. They were trying to protect themselves a little bit, but that so those two were the only times I've been let go from positions. Um, and then that led me to start Boostability with Cody and Matt and Travis and Rick Horsley, who was one of our founders, and then Russ Larson was also there in the very very early days. So um, from the outset, the desire that I've always had is to be a champion for the small business and to give them products and solutions that are affordable and valuable for them. Because previously, only enterprise companies, big companies with deep pockets could pay to really have a solid presence online and establish themselves. And so that's what we've tried to do here.
Love it. So fascinating that those dark moments of losing everything was what led you to gaining so much more. And then, as you mentioned, being able to now
Mm-hmm.
champion hundreds of thousands of small businesses, not even just in America, but throughout the world, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that bothered me about the industry when we first started Boostability is there was this mystique, and there still is to some extent around SEO, that it's just trust me, I'll get you to the first page or I'll get you traffic or rankings. Don't worry about how I do it. And so there wasn't any transparency, and that was a big piece that I wanted to solve for, is not only to track it and manage it and make it an efficient process within a company, but
Yeah.
also be fully transparent with the end clients so that they know where their dollars are going.
Yeah. I mean, we still see that today, the black box approach, the magic, the sleight of hand. But I'm guessing back in 2009, nobody else believed in transparency, right?
Yep, we were the first movers in that space. Everyone else kept it all close to the vest and didn't want to share.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, here we are, 2024. How is you've obviously seen a lot as to how SEO has evolved, how it continues to evolve, how it evolves at a faster rate than ever. Where do you see things kind of going as we look forward to the next 3 to 5 plus years?
It's a great question. So AI, I'd be remiss to not mention AI and the tools that are cropping up all over the place and just the rapid expansion of the capabilities that exist in that space. So, I mean, there's two things that I see happening today and that are going to continue to happen is essentially an elimination of certain types of jobs from the marketplace just in total. And that's going to be because the tools are replacing their jobs fully, right? Then there's other jobs that are just going to be impacted from an efficiency and productivity standpoint, meaning that instead of maybe five people doing a specific job, you can do the same thing with one, and then they have some tools that make them that much more efficient. So what I have told people internally to our company, as well as external people that I've talked with, is that this is the time to lean in and to make sure that you are on the cusp and on the forefront of what's happening, that you're blazing your own trail. We've had discussions as a leadership team in our company about what's called a default future or an
Yeah.
invented future, right? The default future is, as you know, is just letting things happen. It's fate, right? You're just rolling with the punches. But the invented future is where you actually take control. It's kind of a manifest destiny type of approach. I'm going to blaze my own path, and this is where I want to be, and these are the steps that I'm going to take to get there. And for people that I'm reminded of the movie Hidden Figures. Have you seen the movie Hidden Figures? So there's a woman in that movie. Her name is Dorothy Vaughan, and she's played by Octavia Spencer. Fantastic actress. Love everything that she's been in. But she represents Dorothy Vaughan, and Dorothy Vaughan is over this team of women that are kind of number crunchers and calculators, and they do a lot of the math on the back end for NASA, kind of in a just a big room, bunch of people sitting at desks crunching numbers. Well, what happens is this big IBM mainframe computer gets purchased by NASA and it's put in this big room, and some engineers go in and they start plugging stuff in and trying to get it work. They can't figure out how to get it to work. What does Dorothy Vaughan see? She sees an opportunity because she can see the writing on the wall that their jobs are going by the wayside. So if they just stay on their default future, they'll just be let go. They'll have to find employment or develop some skill set that will give them gainful employment elsewhere. But instead, she takes the invented future approach. She goes and grabs the manual. She takes it home. She teaches herself Fortran, how to program and use this machine. And then she then turns around and starts educating and training her people so that they can then move into this same invented future that she's done. And it's such a brilliant thing, and it's based on a true story. It's what she actually did, and I think it's phenomenal what she did.
So, I mean, I guess to apply your story to where we're at, right? We see boostability as kind of being the Dorothy, right? We've got
Mhm.
this AI technology, and rather than being afraid of it or setting it aside or letting, as you said, just the default future happen for us and for those who we serve, let's get in there. Let's look
Yeah,
at the AI manual. Let's figure out how we can use this new technology, just like search engines before it, just like the personal computer before that, just like NASA and the IBM machine before that, right? Let's use it to our advantage
yeah,
and then help other people with it. I love that. Great
yeah,
move.
absolutely. I mean, the AI tool set is something that we're digging deep into. We're leaning in hard as a company, and there's aspects of what we've done previously that we're automating. That is displacing some of our employees, but we're
Yeah.
also creating opportunities for other areas and other jobs that can be done. And so um, there's give and take, and any time that there's technical revolutions that take place, and I believe that AI is creating a technical revolution right now within society as a whole, there's change. And it's
Very,
funny
very
because
so.
most of us are adverse to change, right? We don't like change, but yet it's the only thing that is guaranteed in this life is change.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, rolling with the punches, but not just letting things happen, but taking a proactive approach is definitely our mantra as a company.
Yeah. Well, and even from your own story today, right? Change was hard and in a couple of occasions painful and forced, but yet, it's kind of what you needed. I don't know if you'd be here today or and then if you're not here, I'm not here, right? If those things hadn't happened. So, well,
Yeah.
a few quick questions for you. I think that our listeners here would love to hear. What thoughts or advice would you give to a small business, a few employees, we've got a founder, right? You've been in those shoes, and they got all these things screaming at them. One of them is SEO. They know it's good. What would you say to them about kind of just getting started? What's going to help them get found online?
It's a great question. So for the small business, um, I would say focus on what you do best. And what you do best, the reason why you started your company is to be a plumber, to be an HVAC technician, to be a pool maintenance company, to be whatever it is you've chosen to do. That is your bread and butter, and that's your specialty. When you're talking about marketing and you're talking about the nuance that exists to be effective in your SEO strategy or your paid media or whatever it is online, you need to rely on the people that have spent decades of time in the trenches, learning, staying abreast of the latest um, momentum shifts and all of those things within this industry, and leverage their usefulness. And so pay them to do what you don't have the time and even don't have the knowledge to be effective at, and find a company, vet them, right? And we're more than willing to be vetted and stood up against any other company in the industry because we want you to find the best return for your investment. And we've serviced hundreds of thousands of small businesses over the 15 plus years that we've been in business. And, we have a good, strong track record, but that doesn't mean that there's not other good SEO companies out there in the industry. One of the things that we offer is that not only can we help the small business themselves be found online and to increase their traffic and some of their online reach, but then agency owners that might sell a product, maybe they do website fulfillment or maybe they do business cards or some other service to small businesses,
Yeah.
we can then be a turnkey product solution that they can just throw in as another arrow in their quiver and just put it right into their sales pipeline because all of the advantages, the sales support will help everything from pre-sales all the way through the customer life cycle, to campaign fulfillment and reporting and all of those nuts and bolts. And so that's what I would urge businesses to do is find experts that can do what you're not good at, whether it's accounting, whether it's digital marketing. Find them, utilize them, and focus on your business 100%. Don't try to stretch yourself too thin. Otherwise, you'll end up chasing your tail.
Love that. You didn't know I was going to ask that question, but it's fascinating that I read that small business owners spend less than 40% on the very passion that took them into business. And so it goes along right with what you just said. You know, they're being pulled in too many directions and they sometimes think they can do it, but partner with the experts so that you can be the expert you went in business to be. So
Yep.
that's powerful. In a few words, we started with young Jared. What would you go back and tell your younger self today, you know, with 2 decades of experience and journey? And what would you say?
So you have two things, right? Number one is you could go back and tell yourself to buy Apple and Amazon and Google and Nvidia and
Right.
Bitcoin, right? When they first hit the market. That's the first thing. Everybody do that with a time
Back to
machine.
the future.
Exactly. The second thing is I would tell myself there's a book about this, but it's don't sweat the small stuff. And then the subtext is everything small stuff. Just don't get worked up over things that in the long run really don't matter. Um, have more of a critical eye to what needs your attention and what can fall by the wayside. So that's probably the biggest thing is just don't don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, I love that. And you live it because you're very calm, you're very thoughtful, you're an active listener. And so that's great advice. Well, on the last question here, Jared, for those listening, are there any podcasts, books, leaders, people that you've just admired on your journey that you would, you know, recommend people spend some time listening to as they go about their daily journey and spend time in cars or in public transport that would be better than the opportunity cost, right? Who are the mentors in your life?
It's a great question. So I was kind of been reflecting on this. Funny enough, recently is who are kind of the leaders or the inspirational figureheads that I've kind of looked to or read about. Um, People like Nelson Mandela, you know,
Powerful.
such a poignant individual in history and what happened to him and how he rose above his situation. A person like Steve Jobs, just so impactful to the world. Simon Sinek is somebody that I'd love to listen to. His leadership, training, and just the thought-provoking things the insights that he brings into just everyday discussions.
Start with
Um,
why. It's
I love,
powerful.
yeah, start with why. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I love
Mhm.
the RGB. I think that she was just a phenomenal individual, so brave. Barack Obama, Mitt Romney, Gandhi.
Mhm.
I love Keanu Reeves, Brene Brown, and Martin Luther King Jr. Those are just some impactful people. One of the books that I'm reading right now is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, who was the Roman emperor back in I think it was 150 AD. And it's fascinating to me that and it even goes along with what the question that you asked me about sweating the small stuff.
Mhm.
When you read this, and obviously it's translated, but you read his words, and it's the same issues that we have today. It's
Power
the
of the authority.
same political discourse. There's opposition, a little bit of
Yeah.
enmity sometimes, and and he just reiterates: surround yourself with beauty, surround yourself with positive friendships and love and goodness, and do right by people. Be kind, be honest, right? Just the mantras that we try to live by today. The same things were there, and this is thousands of years ago, so disconnected, but yet we're living
So
virtually the
relevant.
same experience. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jared, for sharing your experience with us today. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you being down to earth, a man of the people, I would say. You know, you've had some unique experiences. We appreciate you sharing them today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We look forward again to spending some time with you on October 8th. That's our next webinar. Have a fantastic day. Keep smiling and don't sweat the small stuff. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Aaron.